Lane Kiffin's not everyone's cup of tea. We all can agree with that one. But he has done a lot of good for college football, primarily in the Magnolia State, as Ole Miss is now playing in its second New Year's Six Bowl since its arrival in 2020. They're now getting consistent 10-win seasons, and they always seem to find a way to land players in the transfer portal. But Kiffin's about ready to do a mic drop on college football if he can land two premier players from the SEC for his roster going into next season. Let's talk about recent visits that are coming to Oxford this upcoming weekend. If you are new here, welcome on into the channel. My name is Cole Thompson. I'm a radio show host based in Houston, and I talk college football daily. So this is the type of content you enjoy, plus anything going on with bowl games, the national championship, coaching searches, and really a bunch of stupid nonsense that goes on in our sport. Make sure you smash that subscribe button down below. Leave a comment telling me your thoughts on the future of the Rebels going into 2024. Tell your friends, your family, Rebels fans everywhere, and college football aficionados about this channel, because we're on the race to 1,000, and we're so close on that one. Then 5,000, then 10,000, then 100,000, and ladies and gentlemen, derail for a second. You know we're going to get there. So jump on in while the water's fine. Give me a follow on social media at Mr. Cole Thompson. That way, the college football conversation never has to stop flowing. So Lane Kiffin's already done a lot of good going into 2024. And if you don't believe me, well, let's just look at the names that are returning for next season. You're getting back one of your premier wide receivers in Jordan Watkins, who this past year was probably your number 2. Because your number 1 receiver, Trey Harris, is now also coming back for another season. Caden Prieskorn is not going anywhere, so there's your starting tight end. You're not losing Quinshawn Junkins because he has another year of eligibility. Oh, and the NIL Collective is doing a nice job paying him a lot of money. It feels like Jackson Dart is at least going to view his conversations about what he could do after this season. Not to mention on the defense side of the football, J.J. Pegas and Jared Ivey, they're not going anywhere either. So you're already returning 2 qualified defensive linemen, 3 personified weapons. You're not losing your running back, and your quarterback's probably coming back as well. So you're in a really good spot when it comes to building off of what you did in 2023. You know, losses to the 2 teams that played in Atlanta. Good for you. Here's the other part. You're in the running to go get Juice Wells from Columbia. There won't only be one Juice now down in Oxford. Sorry, Juice the dog. You're going to have to share that title with Wells, who could end up being a game changer for your offense. Not to mention whatever else you add in via the offensive line or the running back room in the portal. Don't believe me, you will get at least 1 or 2 of those players. And now you're looking to fortify your defensive line. Go back and listen to Lane Kiffin's comments after the Georgia game. It was very precedent that he realized what was stopping Ole Miss from being a great team. 5-star talent. And I'm not going to say that every team that lands a premier 5-star is getting a clear-cut, bona fide, super future college football Hall of Famer. It's not plausible. The adaptability, your attentiveness to detail, and your ability to build up on players and what they can do and how to better get them ready for the next level is ultimately what decides if you are a good place for 5 stars to land. But there is a reason why you are a 5-star talent to begin with. What you showed on film during your high school days and what the potential upside was for you in the right program. That's where Lane Kiffin is finally now laying down the hammer. He's not just going after 4 stars or 3 stars that play on the defensive line. He's not just going after players who potentially could be difference makers with a few extra reps under their belt. He's going after proven commodities that absolutely can terrorize a defense and fortify a defense for the better future. Texas A&M defensive lineman Walter Nolan is expected to visit this upcoming weekend. And the kid is from Powell, Tennessee, but he actually was born in Mississippi. So there's ties there. And this is a player who we will talk about profusely whenever we go on here because of plain and simple. There's not that many names that we spend an egregious amount of time on. Walter Nolan is one of them. Just the way he can change a game, disrupt an offensive line, force his way into the backfield, make a running back, make complete and total tragedy happen, and also terrorize a quarterback. Yeah, he can do all that. And he can do it at a quick rate. And he basically is a human assassin that can terrorize your team in an instant. So we want to talk about a guy like Walter Nolan because we should be talking about a guy like Walter Nolan. So you add him to your defensive line. This was a unit that last year gave up 4 yards per play on the ground. 4 yards in the SEC, it's serviceable, but you want better. Most teams would actually kill to have a defense that is only allowing 4 yards per play a rush attempt. We'll say that turns down to 2.9. Well, now you're entering Alabama categories and Texas categories and Georgia categories, and maybe even you could say a team on the come up like LSU categories. That's where you are. So your defense is getting stronger on that forefront. But then what about the pressures? Well, Walter Nolan can terrorize an offensive lineman up the middle, but you need to be able to add some names on the outside. Lo and behold, Florida all edge, superstar, potential all SEC, Princely Anumanlalan, hopefully I said that right, I apologize for the pronunciation, is also looking at Oxford. This is another potential 5-star. Super solid, contactful player, forceful up the backfield, can absolutely change the course of a game in an instant. And now you have potentially 2 difference makers on your defensive line, not to mention your offense. We already know what Lane Kiffin can do with an offense. We know what he can do in the transfer portal. And here's what really is happening. At this point, Kiffin's no longer saying, I'm going to play nice and be alongside those other up-and-coming teams when it comes to the transfer portal. I am the portal king. And everyone's going to realize pretty quickly, we do things different in Oxford. That's what you're getting every single time Lane Kiffin enters the portal. And the fact that Walter Nolan and Princely Umanalalan is now looking at Oxford is a huge testament to what the future entails, because they can go anywhere in the country. They can look at programs like Alabama, they can look at LSU, Georgia, Florida State, Clemson, Ohio State, Michigan, the blue bloods and the ones that we talk about almost every single week because they are the forefronts of college football. Those programs would love to add these type of players. Even Clemson. Yes, lo and behold, Dabo Swinney seems to have a change of heart and is probably starting to look at the transfer portal as a positive instead of a negative. They could all land them. But they're also looking at schools like Kentucky. They're also looking at schools like Ole Miss and Missouri and up-and-comers that could end up being household names in a 12-team playoff. And Kiffin said, I've been doing this stuff for quite some time. I'm pretty damn good at working the transfer portal by getting 4 stars. Let me go after a 5-star or 2. Because I know what's happening up in Athens. I know what's happening down in Tuscaloosa. I know that we are a program that has talent that can compete with them in some phases. Wide receiver, we're good enough. Running back, we're good enough. Defensive backfield, we're pretty damn good at that position. Linebacker, we actually can hold our own. But defensive line, not being able to add enough pressure, we need to fortify that. Offensive line, we need to be able to hold a block a little bit longer to give our quarterback time to find a receiver downfield for a second attempt. Those are areas where you have to be able to win. And the bottom line is that whether or not you find a way to add in premier players via the transfer portal, you still have to add those names in on the recruiting trail. That's a key element here. I don't think you'll ever be able to truly build an offensive or defensive line just by adding in proven commodities. And you heard Jeff Schwartz, a very talented offensive lineman and very good at his job and what he does on TV for Fox Sports, mention how Jordan Seaton at Colorado, when he committed, even though the Buffaloes have gone out and they've added in superstar proven commodities for the offensive line, that's a move that's better. But you ain't get much better than Walter Nolan for a defensive player. You ain't get much better than Princely Anumanlalan on the outside for an edge rusher. And these are players who are actually in play for the Rebels, which is a huge testament there. I mean, seriously, go back and tell yourself Ole Miss is going to be able to land 5-star talents over names like Alabama, Georgia, LSU, Ohio State, and USC. They're going to have NIL, by the way, at their disposal. And these players are looking at those schools. They're looking at Alabama as a second tier behind Ole Miss. Why go to Alabama where I can be a name on the radar, or I can go to Ole Miss and I can be a superstar and a name that everyone is going to remember and a name that could be the reason why we're talking about differences coming to Oxford. That's the MO of what Lane Kiffin's doing. We know that he's the transfer portal king, and until someone finds a way to dethrone him and force him to bend the knee, he gets to claim that title because he's always worked the transfer portal in his favor. He gets studs, he gets dudes, he gets difference makers. That's his job. But what he now is doing is he's adding in proven names that are elite players, not just good players that could become great players that could become elite. That's what you look at in a Walter Nolan. That's what you look at in a Princely Umanalalan. That's what you look at, what the names that Kiffin is targeting. You get them in the building, plus what you're retaining, plus potentially what else you can add in either this transfer portal cycle or the next transfer portal cycle after spring football. There's a reason why we're talking about Ole Miss being an AP preseason top 10 team. They may be a preseason top 5 team. And that weight with their schedule, did you watch what they get to go against next year? No Alabama, no Texas A&M, those teams? Yeah, I'm looking at 11-1 being a pretty decent standard. I'm talking about 12-0 being an expectation and maybe even a goal. Maybe making it to Atlanta and having a weekend stay down at Mercedes-Benz Stadium is not that far-fetched. Lane Kiffin's doing a lot of good. And probably the best thing for him was actually staying in Oxford. You know, the grass is not always greener on the other side. And we say that a lot when it comes to the transfer portal. We talk about kids who want to get another opportunity to go elsewhere and then their career unravels. The same thing goes for coaches. Sometimes you'll take a risk and you'll no longer like your vicinities or what's at your disposal at one school. So you'll think that more money leads to more results and better potential, and you're shown the door. Jimbo Fisher would like a word on that. Former national champion winning coach. Never gets over 9 wins at Texas A&M. Pretty much of a sad deal when you're getting paid $75 million. So Lane Kiffin fits what Oxford needs. Lane Kiffin didn't need to go to Auburn. He doesn't need to go to Texas or go to A&M or go to Alabama. He can build his own program and one that's sustainable in Oxford for the foreseeable future. Ole Miss is one of the biggest risers in college football right now. And the fact that they have kids now considering their school, look at what the upside is. Once you get one, the domino effect continues. And now more 5-stars are looking at what Walter Nolan is doing. And now more 5-stars are going into the transfer portal and saying, I want to go be a part of the SIP. I want to go down where the juice is flowing and I get to be a part of something special. And then what does that do? It turns it into an area where now you're getting 5-star recruits to buy into the program first before they ever even consider the portal. That's what Lane Kiffin is doing. So if he can land these 2 players, not only are the Rebels rocking and rolling going into 2024, we're going to be changing our persona and our tune about them a little bit more. I already believe that in a 12-team playoff next year, they should be a favorites to make it. Now, we may be talking about them winning a few games in the process that maybe sends them all the way to the national championship.
Thanks for watching that video. Don't hit the X button yet. Make sure you hit subscribe to keep up with all of our daily content found on Just Saying It and anything else that we post on this channel. Bye.